How's it going, everyone? Ryan from the MTG Homebrew Network podcast here. Come to talk to you today about a deck that I'm very proud of and I like a lot, which is most of my decks, except for ones that I recently talked about. But speaking of recently talked about it, on our Retired Decks podcast, go check it out. I'll link it in the description. I talked about PreDH briefly. Or I mentioned it, really. I didn't really talk about it too much, but I wanted to show you today what PreDH is and what deck I'm playing and why I like it so much. So I guess from the start, PreDH is a sub-format of Commander called PreDH because it is before Commander. It's only legal up to New Phyrexia, so that's around 2012, and that's because after that, the first Commander products were printed. And a lot of people did not like that Commander products were printed. It was the format that was made by players, not by wizards. And they felt that it was kind of like an infringement upon Commander as a concept, because it was, it's not a sanctioned thing. It is a for fun, not competitive format, and a lot of players today feel like Magic of today is greatly influenced by Wizards' decision to market pre-constructed decks to Commander players. The problem originally with the Commander decks was that they're all broken. Just all of the Commanders that they printed for their first Commander release were objectively overpowered and kind of too good because they were all in 3 colors. Originally, the 3 color Commanders that you had access to were some from Legends, like, Angus Mackenzie, the original Elder Dragons, like Nicol Bolas, and the later, Plane Chase, or no, like Dromar, those Commanders. But when they printed Commander decks, they made a whole bunch of new 3 color Commanders that were all above power of normal legendary creatures. So we had like Kalia of the Vast, which is iconic. It's one of the most popular, one of the most sought after Commanders ever to be printed. So much so that there's 30 something different printings of different art and, reprints and stuff. It's, these Commanders were so popular that it just kind of overshadowed the rest of the format. And forever, Kalia and Damia, Zedru, even if they were fair and fun to play against, they just overshadowed the Commander format that was before. So PreDH is everything up to New Phyrexia. So you have the Praetors, they're monocolored decks, so take that as it is. But I here am playing Xiahou Dun, the One-Eyed, who is a human soldier, 3/2 for 2 black, so 4. With horsemanship, which is just it's a product of its time. I think it perfectly encapsulates what PreDH is. And sacrifice Xiahou Dun, the One-Eyed, return target black card from your graveyard to your hand, activate this ability only during your turn before attackers are declared. This is, in my opinion, one of the most nuanced, fun Commanders for PreDH, because it is a reliable source of Commander damage, which works the same as it always has. 21 Commander damage from a Commander will end the game, as well as it is regrowth in Mono-Black for your black cards that you're playing, which is not an effect that existed until after PreDH. There weren't really good or any ways to get back instants and sorceries in Mono-Black, let alone colorless. Because later we had things like Codex Shredder and Conqueror's Galleon, stuff like that. But this card is just attacking on different angles all around, the horsemanship and the regrowth effect. And another reason why people like PreDH so much is because it is the format that lets you play the big dumb commander cards that wouldn't get played in Commander today. Namely, who I think, best exemplifies this example is Solemn Simulacrum. 4 mana for an artifact creature Golem. When Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. When Solemn Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. Mwah, that's my beautiful boy. My beautiful dying, entering the battlefield boy. Solemn, at the time, was a staple, because any deck could play it, and every deck really wanted to, because it was colorless ramp that draws you a card and blocks just so nicely. You would see it basically in most commander decks that would want to draw a card and put a land into play from the deck. There were colorless decks at the time, but we didn't have wastes, so there was no reason to really play Solemn in that. But like in mono black decks like this, mono red, really all of the monocolor decks that weren't green really wanted colorless ramp. So Solemn was just the perfect answer to that. And to kind of get into the rest of the deck, the plan of Xiahou Dun, the plan of my deck that I'm playing is tap out control. So the idea is you want to be like affecting the board when you cast something and not holding up mana to do so. So anything that would be done at like sorcery speed. So I have things like Duplicant. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-token creature, and it gets the power and toughness of the thing. And creature types of the thing it exiles. For 6 mana. Like I said, this would be kind of okay at rate today, but this is like a bomb in the monocolor decks of PreDH because it is colorless and it's targeted removal. It's just kind of nuts. Massacre Worm, wipe your opponent's board, make them lose life based on all of their small creatures. Shieldred Whispering One, everybody sacks on their upkeep, you reanimate. We're just trying to control the board on our turn and let people have turns to build back up, but we're, still, beating them out in the end because our value is just too good. People will groan when they don't have creatures and you play a Shieldred, but like, you're winning the game. It's not like they can come back from that really very easily. Mind you, it's not like this format didn't have answers to things. Like black-white had Vindicate, white had Swords to Plowshares. Most of the good counterspells like Force of Will counterspell, those exist in this format. You even get things that we don't see these days like Cryptic Command. That's a staple of blue decks in PreDH because it just does everything. But it's just too much of a resource, and the games are too fast today for it to be a staple in modern Commander, which is unfortunate because you get awesome cards that you don't see anymore. Like, I don't know, what's a good example? Oh, Shriekmaw. Shriekmaw is just so good. It's terror on a creature. It doesn't really make it in decks today because it's just more inefficient. Same with like Pestilence Demon and Reaver Demon. These are creatures that like, you get to play and you're like the threat, Today, these are just like, all right, well, costs 8 mana, the game is over by turn 5 anyways. Because the card pool wasn't curated towards the format of Commander, cards that were otherwise innocuous and maybe bad in 1v1 got to shine in this format. And that's still the case. But Wizards is specifically designing cards to be good in Commander, and those are the Commander cards now, not the Shriekmaws and Magus of the Coffers of the past. And this isn't like a grumpy, like, harumph, I don't like modern Commander kind of thing, because there's a lot of design space that I really like. Speaking personally, I really like how modern Commander is and plays. I just also appreciate the fact that this is a time capsule. This is a Commander format that doesn't inherently have to be designed for. This was the cards that didn't otherwise get played in a format where they were good. And I love that. I love the idea of that. Like I said earlier, a lot of modern players feel that Commander is the reason that the game is the way that it is now. Whether it be the modern printings of everything having like 5 arts and different foil treatments and secret layers that exist, and just, you know, other like competitive formats dying out because Commander's the most popular, it's the most accessible, it's what people start playing these days instead of getting into like Standard to start with, because, you know, the common player of games doesn't have the competitive drive to quote unquote get good. I'm not saying Commander players aren't good at the game. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that the experience of Commander players is Commander. And a lot of people don't venture forth from that. They just enjoy the game, and that's perfectly fine. I'm realizing now that this isn't really like a deck tech video. This is just kind of a comment on the state of Commander and PreDH, but I don't mind that. I think this is a perfectly reasonable platform to have a conversation about what PreDH is and why Magic is the way it is right now. I digress. Anyways. This deck is sweet. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I highly recommend, if you have the ability or want to proxy it, try to play it, do it. I love this deck so much. It, you know, harkens back to when I started playing Commander, which was actually after the first Commander decks were printed. I got it in 2013 when the Marath, Will of the Wild, and Prosh, all of those Commander decks got printed. And that was a great time. I really enjoyed playing Commander through that. The first deck I built by myself was Trostani. And then after that was Mono-Black with the Mono-Black Commanders that came out in 2014, which eventually became my Shieldred deck, which I have retired, and I didn't really talk about in my in the Retired Decks podcast because it wasn't as relevant, because I still play this deck. And I'm still getting to play this deck. And PreDH isn't like a huge format right now. It's gaining traction. People are seeing what it is and kind of polarizing things like, oh, it's just people being frustrated and wanting to, you know, harken back to a time when they weren't, you know, being catered to. And to a degree, that's correct, but I don't think it's as, I don't know, seemingly toxic as it would make out to be. It's just another play experience that people are known to have enjoyed and are getting back to. Yeah, and I really appreciate this format. I appreciate this deck, and I appreciate you, dear viewer, for listening to me and you know, seeing this deck. So if you enjoyed, please like the video and subscribe, and perhaps join our Discord, which I'll link in the description. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Shoot me a message. We'll, you know, have a chat. Yeah, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.